The first light of dawn slid across the canopy like a silent wave, brushing the upper leaves of the Congo rainforest with warm gold. Beneath this shimmering veil, the forest began to wake in a chorus of soft rustling, distant bird calls, and the rhythmic hum of insects that had never known silence. For thousands of years, this forest had breathed in its own steady rhythm, untouched by the world beyond its emerald borders. But now, a small team of researchers stood at its edge, preparing to walk deeper into a realm where mystery was the language spoken by every tree, river, and creature. Dr. Aidan Clark adjusted the straps of his pack and wiped beads of sweat from his forehead, already forming despite the early morning coolness. His work had taken him across continents, but the Congo always felt different, older, heavier, as if the forest carried memories of forgotten worlds. He had come in search of answers to a puzzle that had baffled biologists for decades: the sudden disappearance and reappearance of a rare bird species known as the cobalt-throated sunpiercer. It had vanished completely from records 40 years ago, only to reappear in a blurry photograph taken by a local guide 6 months earlier. As the team stepped inside, the forest enveloped them instantly. Sunlight fractured into a million shards through the high branches, falling in needles of gold that danced with motes of dust. The air was thick with the sweet scent of orchids, decaying leaves, and damp soil. Every step released tiny clouds of unseen spores. For National Geographic readers, such places existed like distant dreams, but for Aidan, they were both sanctuary and duty. The trails were narrow, almost non-existent. Vines wrapped themselves around ancient trunks, their roots sinking like talons into the earth. Somewhere above, a troop of colobus monkeys leapt gracefully from branch to branch, their black and white fur flashing between leaves. Aidan paused for a moment, listening. He could always tell the mood of a forest by the sound of its inhabitants. Today, there was a peculiar tension, like a collective breath held too long. He scribbled a note in his field journal. By midday, the heat settled like a heavy blanket. The forest floor steamed, and every member of the team moved slowly, weighed down by humidity and fatigue. They stopped at a narrow river, its waters clear enough to reveal smooth stones beneath. Aidan crouched beside it and dipped his fingers in. The water was cool, refreshing, flowing from springs deep within the untouched heart of the forest. "It feels alive," he murmured. "It is alive," replied Nyasha, their lead tracker from a nearby village. Her eyes scanned the opposite bank. "This river feeds everything here. Without it, even the strongest tree will fall." Nyasha had grown up near the forest, learning from elders who believed that every animal carried a piece of the land's spirit. She moved through the jungle as if she were part of it, every step intuitive. Aidan trusted her judgment more than any map. As they crossed the river, the calls of the forest shifted. The bright chatter of birds grew distant, replaced by deeper, almost mournful echoes. Aidan checked his GPS. They were entering an area rarely visited by humans, a place locals called the Chamber of Echoes. According to Nyasha, sound behaved strangely here. Some noises vanished instantly, others lingered too long. An hour later, they reached the base of a towering fig tree whose girth was so wide it would take 6 people holding hands to encircle it. Moss covered its roots, and tiny frogs clung to its trunk like vibrant jewels. Aidan knelt to examine a feather caught in one of the roots. It was glossy black with a faint blue shimmer, the first real sign of the bird they sought. "This is it," he whispered. Nyasha's expression tightened. "But if the sunpiercer is here again, something else has changed too." Aidan looked at her, puzzled. "What do you mean?" "The forest never gives without taking," she said softly. They camped for the night, their tents forming a small circle beneath the ancient fig. The forest at night was a different universe. In daylight, it was majestic; in darkness, it was primordial. Fireflies glittered like drifting stars. The distant roar of a waterfall echoed faintly. Strange eyes glowed between the trees. Aidan lay awake, listening. He kept thinking of Nyasha's words. He had always believed in balance, but he also knew that human interference, logging, mining, climate change, often tipped scales beyond repair. If the sunpiercer had returned, it might be responding to something far greater than they understood. At dawn, they pressed deeper. The terrain grew steeper, and the undergrowth denser. Every now and then, Aidan caught flashes of blue shimmering between branches. His excitement grew. It wasn't a hallucination. The sunpiercer was near. The team moved silently, careful not to disturb the delicate ecosystem. Suddenly, a burst of iridescent wings erupted from a cluster of ferns. Aiden froze. The bird hovered for just a moment, sunlight igniting its cobalt throat in a blaze of metallic brilliance. Its wings beat so fast they blurred into a faint halo. Then it vanished deeper into the forest. Aiden felt his pulse quicken. We have to follow it. They moved swiftly, guided by fleeting glimpses. The bird led them through a maze of vines and roots until they reached a clearing that felt strangely deliberate. Here, the forest grew in perfect symmetry, rows of trees standing like guardians around a shallow pool of crystal-clear water. The sunpiercer perched on a branch above the pool, its throat glowing as if lit from within. Aiden raised his camera, but something made him hesitate. The scene felt sacred. Nyasha stepped beside him. This is a nesting ground. Only a few species know of it. Aiden lowered his camera. Why would it come back here after disappearing for decades? Nyasha traced her fingers along the bark of a nearby tree. Because something drove it away. And something has changed again. Before Aiden could respond, the bird emitted a soft, haunting call that reverberated across the clearing. The trees seemed to shiver. Beneath the surface of the pool, tiny ripples formed though nothing had touched the water. Aiden knelt and examined the soil near the pool. It was rich, too rich. Chemical analysis later confirmed what he already suspected. The minerals here were unusually concentrated, possibly due to underground seismic shifts or temperature changes, signs of an evolving environment. Climate patterns in the Congo had shifted drastically in recent years. Droughts became more severe, rains more erratic. The sunpiercer, sensitive to even small environmental changes, may have migrated in search of stability. Now, perhaps, it sensed that the forest was healing in ways unseen to human eyes. As the team documented the clearing, Aiden noticed something alarming. Several trees nearby bore deep gashes, evidence of illegal logging activity. Fresh footprints hinted at recent human intrusion. His stomach tightened. Nyasha, someone has been here. She nodded grimly. Loggers. They cut near sacred areas now. Nothing is safe. The realization stung. The return of the sunpiercer wasn't just a triumph of nature, it was a warning. If humans continued to encroach, this rare sanctuary might vanish before the world even knew it existed. That night, the team debated what to do. Some wanted to retreat and inform conservation authorities immediately. Others argued to stay and gather more evidence. Aiden struggled with the weight of responsibility. He wrote in his journal, "If this place disappears, the sunpiercer may disappear with it forever. We must protect it, not for science, not for fame, for the forest itself." The next morning, they set out to follow the bird again, hoping to locate its nest. The trail led them uphill until they reached a ridge overlooking miles of untouched forest. Mist rolled over treetops like waves at sea. The beauty was overwhelming, yet fragile. But as they descended the ridge, the air shifted. The sound of engines rumbled through the trees. Aiden's heart sank. A group of illegal loggers was cutting trees only a few hundred meters away. Nyasha signaled for silence. The team crouched behind foliage. Aiden saw them, 4 men, 2 chainsaws, and stacks of freshly cut timber. The scent of crushed leaves and gasoline mixed in the air, forming a bitter knot in his throat. "This is worse than we thought," he whispered. A sudden movement caught his eye. The sunpiercer darted above the loggers, frantic, its call sharp and distressed. It wasn't just losing trees, it was losing its home. Aiden felt something ignite within him, a fierce determination he hadn't felt in years. He stood slowly, raising his hands to show he wasn't threatening. Nyasha hissed for him to stop, but he shook his head. He walked into the clearing. The loggers turned, startled. One of them tightened his grip on the chainsaw. "You shouldn't be here," the man warned. "Neither should you," Aiden replied calmly. "This area is a protected zone. You're destroying a critical habitat." The men exchanged glances, then, unexpectedly, lowered their tools. One of the older loggers stepped forward, his expression conflicted. "We don't want to destroy anything," he said quietly. "But we have families to feed. Work is hard to find." Aiden's anger softened. The problem wasn't the men, it was the system failing both people and nature. He took a slow breath. "If we document this place, if we prove its importance, the government and NGOs can help protect it, and maybe create sustainable jobs that don't destroy the forest." The logger held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "Show us why it matters." Aiden pointed toward the ridge. The Sunpiercer hovered there, glowing like a shard of sky. Because this forest is alive in ways the world has never seen. For the next 2 days, the loggers guided the team through areas where damage had begun. They shared stories about changes in the forest, drying rivers, disappearing animals, erratic seasons. Their knowledge was raw but invaluable. Together, they mapped a detailed report. Environmental data, photographs, chemical samples, GPS coordinates of the nesting grounds. It was powerful evidence, enough to spark national attention. As they prepared to leave, the Sunpiercer appeared once more, perched on a branch beside Aiden. It tilted its head, as if acknowledging him. The moment felt like a promise, fragile, yet hopeful. Aiden whispered, "We'll protect this place. I swear it." The journey back was quiet, each step heavy with the realization that the future of this forest was now in human hands. But Aiden believed they had ignited something: awareness, urgency, responsibility. Weeks later, their report would reach conservation agencies. Protected status would expand. Patrol units would be deployed. Funding would rise. And in the heart of the Congo, the cobalt-throated Sunpiercer would continue to shine its brilliant blue light across a forest fighting for survival. For Aiden, the story was never about one bird. It was about understanding a truth as old as the trees themselves, that every life in the forest, no matter how small, carries a piece of the world's whisper. And if humans listened, truly listened, they might learn how to live with the planet instead of against it. As he left the forest behind, he knew one thing for certain. This story wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of a promise, written not in words, but in the shimmering wings of a rare bird returning home.